So what's your full name, Jeremy?
It's Jeremy Gordon Smith.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Filey, 1967, on Rutland Street.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit about your parents?
My dad was a fisherman until he was 48. And he also had a seafood business, which he had down on the Cobble Landing and also at Primrose Valley holiday camp. So they used to sell crabs, lobsters, prawns, etc. And he also used to sell them around the other camps, around the clubs. But my dad was in the Merchant Navy until he was 24, and then he came into the fishing.
Was there any generations before him?
No, my dad's dad was a miner. He was from up north, Cumbria.
Oh right.
He was.
Came down.
He came down here and married his wife, dad's mother.
How did they meet you? Do you know how?
I don't know how they met.
What was your dad's name? Is he still around?
My dad,
still with us?
Yeah, my dad's still with us. He's called Jim Smith.
Did he have a nickname as well?
Tucker.
And you carried that on as well?
Yeah, it was just a family nickname.
Yeah. So you went to school, Filey?
I went to school at Filey. Basically, everybody was longlining at the time. And I always used to tell my dad out on a weekend with his gear, and I was always interested in fishing from an early age. So I basically left school straight away at 16. Went fishing till I was 21, then I went on the oil rigs.
Oh.
I left and went on the oil rigs on and off for 10 years. I did, and then I came back and I went fishing with Jim Axby in the Crimond for 3 to 4 years. And then I went back on the oil rigs, but in between I used to take angling parties as well, taking tourists out angling, because my dad used to do it in the summer, so I took over from him. And then I left the rigs about 7 years ago, and I came back and bought my own boat full time and set up myself to start my own business.
And that's the Lucian, is it?
Yeah, that's the Lucian.
Who's that named after?
I only got the boat last year. I had a little cobble called Our Mitzi, which Pip Farley had. And then I sold that last year and I bought the Lucian from Scarborough, which was off a local trawlerman called Gabba. And it was called, the Lucian is called after his granddaughter, as far as I know.
What happened to our Mitzi? Where did that go?
It's still down on the Cobble Landing.
Oh, right.
It's still down there for now.
So is anyone using that? Or?
Yes. Yeah, that's still getting used.
So that's a little bit how you started out, and you spent some time with Jim Axby, and then you went off to Scotland on the rigs and all over. Or
basically, I learned most of my trade from Jim Axby, my long lining trade, and all about the long lining and the potting. I learned a hell of a lot off him, and we used to also go salmoning. But I don't do salmoning now myself. I just concentrate on the potting and a bit of long lining now in winter.
Oh, right.
I learned most of my trade off Jim Axby, because my dad basically used to do more angling in the summer, taking the tourists, and I just used to give my dad an hand in the winter. But most of it was learned from Jim Axby.
So how many commercial couples are still left down the landing now?
5 commercial working boats at the moment. 5, and one of them could be disappearing soon. Which was the little one I was on about, Mitzi. That could be disappearing, so we could be down to 4.
So that'd be yourself?
That'd be
Energy.
myself, Lucian, Yogi, who has energy, Dave Pockley and Neville, who are Gentle Barbara, Buchanan, Julian Barker runs his boat, Catherine and Sarah. And that'll be the working boat, so I'll be left.
Right. Is there any sort of new people coming along, any young people getting involved, anyone interested, any kids coming to help you? Or? There's
been a couple of young lads who have just left school last year, but they've gone to Scarborough to learn the trade, because there's no vacancies from at the moment on these 5 boats down on the Cobble Landing. So they've gone to Scarborough to get a job, basically.
How many days a week do you sort of go at this time of year now?
As now, we're going about 3 times a week, because it's out of season for lobsters and crabs.
And that's just potting, strictly potting?
That's just potting at the moment,
What are the sort of catches like that you're getting at the moment compared to other years, other seasons? Or?
The catches are more or less the same as last year and the year before. We are out of season at the moment, and we do start to pick up at end of March, start putting gear back in the sea and lengthening our gear up to go every day.
So if you're going to go out tomorrow,
yeah.
Or are you going out tomorrow? I don't know if you're going out
Possibility,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
So you said you've been gearing today. What's the process involved with getting ready to go out?
At the moment I've got 300 crab pots left in the sea. I have 300 which are brought out because you get really bad storms at this time of the year and you get gear smashed up. So I took half a man out. We'll get up in the morning 5 o'clock, probably shove in about 6 o'clock with a tractor, and we'll go out with all those 300 pots.
And that's two of you?
That's two of them. It's me and my crew, yeah. Peter Jackson and...
Who's with you?
Peter Jackson.
Right.
His crew, and he's been with me since I've set up 6 years. So we'll go out on all the 300 crab pots. We'll maybe get a couple of boxes of crabs, which would be 12 stone. Yeah. And maybe about 20 lobsters if we're lucky. Well, that is a good day at this time of year, because the prices are up. When we get going in the summer, and the lobsters are out and crabs are out and temperatures are warming, probably get 100 lobsters a day, 2, 3, 4 boxes of crabs a day. We will. It's mainly from April till Christmas we catch our...
How far would you go out setting your pot?
We can go from a mile to 8 miles. I was working at about 7 miles last year. It was. She's a long way in a little boat.
That's quite a lot of work for a two-man crew. So
yes.
It's quite an intense day, I would think, out. What happens when you get your catch on board? What do you do with it then? You've brought your pots in, you're emptying what you've caught out. They go into trays or boxes? Or?
We box everything. The crabs get boxed. We box the lobsters and then we band them after every fleet. Or every 2 fleets when we get time. And then we cover them up with wet sacks and we keep the lobsters wet because we're usually about 4.5 hours all in our gear in summer. Well, from about 5 o'clock until 11. So we've got to keep all the lobsters damp and then we'll land the lobsters and we go straight up to Edwin Jenkinson's, weigh him off. He puts them into a van and takes them straight to Scarborough where he has all his tanks to keep the lobsters alive. He places them all in the tanks and then lorries from the continent and France, Spain come and take them every week, every 2 weeks.
Does most of it go abroad?
It mainly goes to Spain and France. It does. And some goes local.
What about your gear? As skipper, do you provide all that yourself or do you have a share with your crew on that? Or?
I provide everything. Some boats are half and half with the boats and half and half with the gear. I own the boat outright. I own all the gear outright. The lad who works with me, I put him on a share. He's like on a 3/4 share. Right. And I take a quarter back off him, which maintains all the gear and buys new gear.
I see. What have you ever sort of sat down and worked out the cost over a year of what it costs you to keep your boat out?
Roughly. Good question. I've never really sat down and studied it basically. It is getting a very dear job to do. It is fuel costs, new crab pots, rope, insurance for your boats. It's just like over £1,000 a year just to insure your boats basically.
So before you do anything.
Yeah, and if you're buying new crab pots every year, if you buy 60 crab pots a year or 80 crab pots a year, they're working out at £50 each now.
Really?
And then you want your ropes to go on top, which is like another £500 on top of that. So you could spend about £3,000 on gear a year, then your insurances, then your parking dues. You've got maintenance on your boat to do to keep up to scratch. So it's a never-ending job.
Who's the chap that drives the tractor? Is it Michael?
It's Michael Budd, yes.
Yeah. How do you have to pay him or does he get paid by council?
We own the tractors.
Okay.
There was a fishermen's society formed a lot of years ago. There was 17 boats down there when I left school. There used to be 20 odd boats. And the fishermen have a fishing society. They own the tractors and employ one driver, which is Michael Budd at the moment. And we pay him his wage.
Yeah.
He pushes us in and out and then we maintain the tractors. And as you can see, things are getting a little bit tight only with 5 boats at the moment, with maintenance costs and that.
Do you think there's any interest for new people to take it up down there to expand the fleet or not?
Not at the moment.
No.
It's such a hard dear game to get into. A lot of expense. When I left the oil rigs and I came back and set up, it cost me £28,500 to come back into it to buy my boat and my gear and a second-hand van to run about in. It cost me £28,000 to set up. I was very fortunate that I could afford it at the time. We're working, on the rigs, and well, that's what it cost me.
So that would prohibit a lot of people doing that anyway, wouldn't it?
Yes,
especially younger people.
When you new type licences on your boats, and your boats are dear because of your licences and to do with it.
You mentioned you do a bit of long lining again.
We used to do long lining, and we used to earn our keep out of the long lining years ago. There was more long lining where we used to get our money than potting. We used to always look forward to winter because we used to get our big money. Then in recent years it's faded away like a fish, quotas,
like a whitefish, just not there.
trawlers and so on. But there's just signs of a bit more fish coming back to the grounds, and we've just started having a go again.
Is that like flatfish or haddock or
It's
cod?
cod.
Or, yeah, cod, more cod back.
It's all cod.
That's good. You mentioned a little bit about trawling there. Does that still affect you with your pots and things like that?
It doesn't affect us so much potting. It's just more on the fish side of things.
Right, so if you went out lining, that would be something to be an issue, really.
Yeah.
You used to use flithers or limpets, didn't they, for bait? So you're probably using something else,
That's
like
correct.
squid or something.
We used to use, when I was until this year, last time I was long lining was 96 with your max bait, and we used to use mussels. We used to use mussels and flivers, limpets, and bits of squid. And basically, the mussels, once they're baited, were in the water, used to send an aroma off. So fish used to come to you, basically. Come to the lines because of the smell going through the water. But nowadays, they're hard to get at mussels. You can't get the staff to skein the mussels.
No.
So we use a very inky squid now, which we get from Grimsby, and we'll bait the lines with squid and flivers, limpets.
Yeah.
But I don't think the fish quite as well.
Not giving up the same as the mussels.
Yes, exactly.
Where did you used to source the mussels from? Do you know?
All the mussels used to come from. Some used to come from Scotland, and the other mussels used to come from down at Boston, down south, and from the Wash, that area.
What about netting for herring? Is that something you do?
Well, I've always heard about it in previous years, but I've never done it myself.
I mean, I don't know.
We don't seem to get the herring stocks now to what there was in like just after the World War II, late 40s, 50s, the herring fishing then. But You've
never seen the sort of shoals to make it worthwhile having a go at that. You mentioned about salmoning as well. You have to have a licence, don't you?
Yes, you've got to be fully licensed for the water board for the salmoning.
Are there some of the couples that do that here?
There's 4 or 5 salmon boats salmoning every season at the moment, and the last couple of seasons has been very good.
Is that when Pip caught his shark?
Yes,
in the salmon net, was
yes.
it? Yeah.
He got a type of shark, didn't he?
Yeah. How do you think technology's come into it or changed the cobble? How's that sort of made it different?
Like taking for long linings, we always used to stand and pull them in by hand. But nowadays you can buy a line hauler, and you just put the line onto the hauler, and it pulls the line into like a basket or bin for you. When we used to go before, maybe only 10-15 years ago, we used to pull 12-15 lines in by hand, and it used to take about 5 hours, and it was back aching work, arms aching and sore hands, but now you can get a line hauler and can cut it down to 3 hours. Potting, we have a new type of hauler called slave haulers, and there's a lot of boats now rigging up with a table as well, so the hauler is winching the pots in, and it just pulls the pot up onto a table, if it's all rigged right on the bigger boats. So you don't have to lean over and lift the crab pots in. You just pull them up onto a table, empty them, stack them, and what they do now, they have self-shooting. A lot of them just shoot them straight out the back of the boats now. They've all like opened the back of the boats up. So we used to throw them over by hand, which we still have to in the cobble. But in bigger boats, they just shoot them straight out the back of the boats now, which is faster and easier work. It is.
So it has sort of come into that and made a difference in some ways. And
yeah.
what about forecasts and that now? Obviously they're a lot more accurate. Are you sort of listening every sort of evening? Or
We get forecasts. We have got all the equipment in the boats. You know, all our radios and fish finders and everything else. But we get forecasts all the time, non-stop, and they're pretty accurate nowadays.
When you were sort of a lad, or maybe when your dad was fishing, do you remember much activity out the back here of the council offices?
Yes.
What sort of things was going on there?
No, I remember it all outside the front here as well.
Do you?
This was, it's Queen Street, and all these buildings across here. Were all bait sheds. They're all bait sheds. In those days, all the cobbles had 3-man crews. So every man would do his own gear. So there'd be so-and-so in one shed doing his gear. Somewhere up the road would be his skipper doing his gear and another one doing his gear, and they all had stoves, those burning wood stoves for coal and coke, and all the chimneys were pumping coke out, and they'd all have like their own staff. So while they were at sea fishing, the staff would be scaling the mussels and baiting the lines for when they came back for the next day. They would. The area back of the council office here always used to be stored for crab pots and some more bait sheds.
And would they be like barking and doing stuff like that?
Yes, to be doing the old-fashioned thing. We used to have nylon long lines in them days, whole nylon or emp lines.
Yeah. So,
and they're very weak, so they used to bark the lines to make them stronger and that. But nowadays, you don't have to do that.
Don't
We have like strong braided lines, twisted lines now, and you don't have to do that sort of thing.
So you'd have to do anything on your pots like that, any sort of waterproofing? Or
When they first started potting in the old days, every boat used to work about 100 pots. Now I work 600 for two of us to get a living. They used to work 100 pots, maybe 150 for a 3-man crew, which would get them a good wage, 100 pots.
Yeah.
But their pots weren't like to our standards nowadays. We have bigger pots called parlour pots, which we can leave and fill up. In the old days,